15 Things You Never Knew About the Beverly Hillbillies 1921. That old Jalopy from the Beverly Hillbillies wasn't just a goofy TV car. It had secrets that could make even Jed Clampett's jaw drop. From hidden bloodhounds to mob chaos and drag racing grannies, its real story is wilder than moonshine in a cement pond. Here are all bizarre facts about the 1921 Oldsmobile Hillbillies truck, found behind a feed store in a state of disfigurement. The iconic story of the Clampett's truck began with a sharp vision from producer Paul Henning, who wanted a vehicle that was both pragmatic and nostalgic, one that could capture the rustic essence of Ozark rural life before setting it against the glamour of Beverly Hills. Henning entrusted this critical task to George Barris, Hollywood's legendary custom car specialist, who had proven his ability to transform ordinary cars into screen stars. Barris was specifically instructed to create a vehicle that looked both authentic and deeply nostalgic, yet functional enough to drive through Beverly Hills during 9 seasons of filming, and genuinely embody the hillbilly culture. Barris, with his extensive experience, knew exactly the type of vehicle that could convey Jed Clampett's rustic simplicity, and the search led him to a completely unexpected location in Fontana, California. It wasn't an antique showroom or a restoration garage, but the back of a small feed store. Lying alone, forgotten, and severely damaged, Barris discovered a 1921 Oldsmobile. This car had clearly lived a tough life, abandoned in a state of disrepair, with authentic weathered paint and rust. To an ordinary person, this was just a pile of wreckage needing restoration or disposal, but Barris saw exactly what the show needed. What made this car perfect was its authentic condition. The entire rear half of the body had been cut off by the previous owner. This was not random vandalism, but historical proof of rural ingenuity. At the time, cutting off the back section of old touring cars to convert them into homemade trucks for farm work was a common practice, especially when country folks couldn't afford new trucks. This Oldsmobile had undergone that conversion years before Barris found it, giving it a ready-made hillbilly look without needing artificial aging. Barris decided to preserve this rust, weathered paint, and worn-out appearance, as it offered authenticity that no artificial distressing process could replicate. Barris later confirmed that even though the previous owner had not kept the car in pristine condition, it was precisely that neglected, dilapidated state that he wanted, and he intentionally preserved that weathered look while making the necessary safety and mechanical modifications for television production. Who would have thought that a seemingly worthless, tattered car would later become an icon? It was a sophisticated hybrid Frankenstein. To television audiences, the old truck the Clampetts drove to California was a 1921 Oldsmobile. It was a simple, authentic image that reinforced the family's rustic personality. However, the mechanical truth hidden beneath the weathered paint was far more complex and sophisticated. George Barris revealed that the vehicle was not a purebred Oldsmobile, but a carefully engineered hybrid. It can best be described as an automotive Frankenstein assembled from parts of 2 completely different manufacturers. This combination was kept secret, allowing audiences to accept the car as a pure, antique Oldsmobile without suspicion. Barris used the weathered 1921 Oldsmobile body, the detail that provided the nostalgic and recognizable look he found behind the feed store, but mounted it atop a vintage Ford truck chassis. This dual construction strategy was incredibly clever from a production standpoint, as it allowed Barris to achieve both goals: maintaining the antique appearance of a dilapidated Oldsmobile touring car, while ensuring the vehicle had the necessary structural stability and durability for continuous television filming. The Ford truck chassis provided a much stronger mechanical platform than the original Oldsmobile touring chassis. This was paramount because the vehicle had to bear considerable weight. It had to haul bulky camera equipment and multiple cast members seated in unusual positions, including Granny's rocking chair, precariously perched high in the back. The Ford chassis enabled the car to handle all the props, barrels, and luggage piled on, to create the iconic, overloaded hillbilly image that audiences loved. Barrett-Jackson auction documents confirmed that these vehicles were built by combining the 1921 Oldsmobile basis with a vintage Ford truck chassis, proving this was the standard construction method for all 5 of Barris's trucks. Furthermore, this brand blend also offered a major logistical benefit for the production team in terms of maintenance and repair. Ford truck parts from that era were often easier to find than the rare parts for the Oldsmobile touring car, making it more feasible to keep the vehicle running for almost a decade. 5 trucks were built, but 4 were destroyed. Throughout the brilliantly successful 9-season run of the Beverly Hillbillies, which lasted from 1962 to 1971, George Barris constructed not just one, but 5 separate versions of the Clampett's truck. This is a staggering fact because audiences believed they were following the adventures of the same old Oldsmobile for nearly a decade. In reality, each of these vehicles was documented as being created for different specific purposes during production. They weren't just spare cars sitting in storage. They were actively used for various filming situations, including regular episodes, dangerous stunts, promotional exhibition appearances, and even later had roles in the 1993 The Beverly Hillbillies feature film, which brought the brand back to theaters. The need for multiple trucks was entirely logical, considering the demanding nature of long-running television production. The vehicles needed to be ready for filming at different locations simultaneously, had to endure numerous stunts and harsh driving conditions, and required continuous maintenance throughout nearly a decade of constant use. Barris specifically assigned tasks to each truck, with some categorized as stunt and exhibition vehicles, which could be used for promotional events and car shows. Meanwhile, others were prioritized exclusively for actual filming on set and at location shoots, where visual consistency was required. However, the most shocking revelation is the ultimate fate of 4 of the 5 trucks after production concluded. Despite their iconic status and historical value, according to museum records and documents from Barris Custom Industries, 4 of the original trucks were completely destroyed. This decision was made instead of preserving or selling them to collectors, who would undoubtedly have been willing to pay sky-high prices for such iconic television historical artifacts. Only a single truck survived this purge, and that lone survivor was the vehicle that producer Paul Henning decided to donate to the Ralph Foster Museum, located on the campus of the College of the Ozarks in Point Lookout, Missouri. This museum, affectionately referred to by locals as the Smithsonian of the Ozarks, due to its rich collection of regional and pop culture artifacts, became the perfect resting place for this historical item. This particular truck remains one of the museum's most popular attractions to this day, allowing visitors to see and even sit in the only authentic surviving Clampett's vehicle. The fact that the truck ended its journey in the Ozarks, the very place that inspired Jed Clampett's story, is a deep and meaningful connection, honoring the roots of its creator. The sole survivor was a bicentennial gift. After George Barris had finished his work and the Beverly Hillbillies series concluded in 1971, a dark chapter ensued. 4 of the 5 trucks built were completely destroyed. In this purge of Hollywood props, only 1 truck escaped that grim fate. And this solitary surviving vehicle did not end up in the hands of a wealthy collector or a fancy Beverly Hills showroom, but was destined for a journey back to its roots. This only remaining truck found its permanent home at the Ralph Foster Museum. This is no random museum. It is located on the campus of the College of the Ozarks in Point Lookout, Missouri. This location is deeply significant as it sits near Branson, right in the heart of the Ozark Mountains, the very place that inspired Paul Henning to create the entire series. The decision to donate the car belonged to the producer and creator of the Beverly Hillbillies himself, Paul Henning. Henning's choice was deeply personal, going far beyond a typical charitable donation. He grew up in the Ozarks, specifically Independence, Missouri, and spent his childhood summers camping and hiking through the mountains as a Boy Scout. Henning wanted to connect his massive Hollywood success to the humble roots that shaped his creative vision. The gift was made even more memorable as it was given at a historical moment, the bicentennial anniversary of the Ralph Foster Museum. By donating American television's most iconic vehicle on the museum's 200th anniversary, Henning performed a deeply connective act, honoring both the organization's milestone and the Ozark heritage he brought to audiences across America. The Ralph Foster Museum, affectionately called the Smithsonian of the Ozarks by locals and fans due to its extensive collection, became the perfect resting place. The vehicle remains one of the most popular and recognizable artifacts, attracting tourists from all over the world who wish to see the authentic vehicle that carried Jed, Granny, Ellie Mae, and Jethro through 9 classic seasons of television. It is not just a historical artifact, but a physical symbol of the Ozark heritage displayed in its very spiritual homeland. Do you remember which items the Clampetts loaded onto this truck? Barrels of moonshine or Granny's rocking chair? Share your memories in the comments below. The $10 Photo Squeeze Challenge. After surviving the Hollywood Purge, the only remaining Oldsmobile truck found its permanent home at the Ralph Foster Museum in Point Lookout, Missouri. This location has become a pilgrimage site for nostalgic The Beverly Hillbillies fans who want to physically connect with their childhood memories. One of the most popular attractions at the Ralph Foster Museum is the exclusive opportunity for visitors to actually sit in the famous truck and take a souvenir photo. This experience is not just a regular photo opportunity, but a moment for fans to sit exactly where Jed Clampett steered the vehicle that carried the family through 9 seasons of television history. However, this precious opportunity comes with both a price tag and an unexpected physical challenge that often surprises many visitors. The museum charges $10 for a student employee of the museum to take your official photograph while you sit in the driver's seat. The photo location is specially arranged in front of a large backdrop, featuring a photograph of the show's main cast, including Jed, Granny, Jethro, Ellie Mae, and also Mr. Drysdale and Miss Hathaway. What makes this experience memorable and humorous is the physical challenge of entering the vehicle. Many visitors have reported in online reviews and travel accounts that actually climbing into the truck's front seat is a much harder challenge than they anticipated. This is a vehicle from the 1920s, an era when automobiles were built on a much smaller scale than the modern vehicles we are accustomed to. Critics have warned that stepping into the photo position requires squeezing through a very narrow opening and maneuvering into a cramped space. This car was not designed for 21st century body sizes, making the experience somewhat awkward and physically challenging for many adults. Despite the cramped space and additional cost, over the decades since the car was exhibited, generations of the Beverly Hillbillies fans have been willing to pay the fee and endure the squeeze just to get that photo. This is a testament to the passionate fandom. People who have driven all the way to the Ozarks just to see the car are willing to pay the fee and wrestle through that gap, just to say they sat where Jed Clampett sat, creating a personal connection to one of television's most iconic vehicles. Safety was prioritized over authenticity. Although George Barris was famous for intentionally retaining the vehicle's old, weathered, and rusty appearance to maintain the authentic hillbilly aesthetic, the truth is that he simultaneously implemented extensive structural safety modifications. Crucially, these modifications were cleverly hidden from the camera lens, leaving television audiences completely unaware that they were looking at a heavily reinforced and robust vehicle. The necessity for these changes stemmed from the demanding requirements of the Beverly Hillbillies production. The truck not only had to drive through Los Angeles traffic, but also needed to safely transport multiple cast members in unusual positions. Imagine Granny, Daisy Moses, precariously seated on her rocking chair, placed high in the back of the truck bed, or other actors clinging to various parts of the vehicle during continuous filming for nearly a decade. Absolute safety was the top priority, despite the fragile appearance the car projected. Barris's construction documents revealed the technical details of this reinforcement process. He reinforced the wooden floor sections of the truck bed by using fiberglass and supporting metal bars. These modern support structures were built beneath or entirely within the original wooden structures. The purpose was to provide strength and stability, allowing the car to handle loads far exceeding what a genuinely rotting 1920s vehicle could withstand. Thanks to these hidden reinforcements, the production team could fully load the truck bed with barrels, furniture, luggage, and multiple cast members without the risk of structural failure or creating dangerous situations during filming. Additionally, other safety modifications extended to the mechanical system, brake components, and chassis structure, all of which were upgraded to meet the demands of television production. The opening credits wobble was completely real. One of the most unforgettable images which define the identity of the Beverly Hillbillies is the scene where the old truck visibly wobbles and sways as it travels along Sunset Boulevard, loaded with the Clampetts' belongings. Surprisingly, this swaying was not an intentional special effect added for comedic relief, nor a staged humorous scene to emphasize their awkwardness. Instead, it was the authentic result of the vehicle's inherent poor handling characteristics. The opening sequence unintentionally captured the real mechanical difficulties of driving a 40-year-old hybrid vehicle. This car was cobbled together from mismatched parts, an Oldsmobile body on a Ford chassis, and was never originally designed to run smoothly on modern highways. Max Baer Jr., who played Jethro Bodine and spent countless hours driving or riding in the truck during filming, confirmed in later interviews that the vehicle truly handled poorly and was extremely difficult to control on the road. The image of the overloaded truck with Granny perched precariously on her rocking chair in the back and the loyal hound Duke moving erratically became one of television's most iconic sequences. This visible wobble inadvertently added a layer of authenticity to the show's premise. The story of hillbillies lost and detached from the big city environment. The truck's shaking visually reinforced the idea that the Clampetts were traveling from a simple rural world into unfamiliar, complex, and unaccommodating territory. The Father-Son Hound Duo. Duke, the gray, sad-eyed, seemingly lazy bloodhound, was a familiar sight next to Jed Clampett throughout all 9 seasons, serving as the loyal companion to the family patriarch. This character was an essential part of the authentic hillbilly picture Paul Henning wanted to paint. However, few people know that the on-screen Duke was actually portrayed by not one, but 2 different bloodhounds. The magic of Hollywood made the transition between the 2 dogs so seamless that audiences were completely unaware. The secret lay in their real-life father and son relationship. The original Duke was named Stretch. Stretch was a famous dog actor, owned and trained by Frank Inn, a legendary Hollywood animal trainer. Inn provided animals for all 3 of Paul Henning's hit shows, including the Beverly Hillbillies, Petticoat Junction, and Green Acres. Stretch had an impressive resume before joining the Clampetts. He had appeared as Old Blue in the film No Time for Sergeants and had worked on the Tennessee Ernie Ford Show for 5 years. Although the on-screen Duke character was often depicted as slow and sleepy, consistent with the humorous stereotype of bloodhounds, the real-life Stretch was a very active working dog, continuously involved in many film and television projects. When Stretch passed away at the age of 16, considered quite old for a bloodhound. As the breed often has a shorter lifespan than others, it was time for another dog to take over. Fortunately, Stretch's biological son took over the role. Equally interesting, the puppy was also named Duke in real life, making the character transition perfect. The younger Duke stepped into his father's footprint so smoothly that viewers never noticed the change. This father-son acting dynasty ensured that the Duke character maintained consistent traits and mannerisms of a bloodhound throughout the entire 9 seasons. This seamless handover was not just an interesting behind-the-scenes event, but also helped the show preserve the authenticity of Jed Clampett's beloved hunting companion, maintaining a sense of stability and familiarity for the audience who highly valued these supporting characters. The secret of the Duke father-son duo is a fantastic example of how Hollywood ingenuity and natural kinship came together to create the enduring mystique of an iconic supporting character. Dismantled for international travel. In July 1967, Paul Henning made an incredibly ambitious production decision, taking the entire cast and crew to England to film episodes where Jed Clampett unexpectedly inherits a castle. The biggest challenge was how to get the iconic truck to England to maintain the visual continuity that the audience was accustomed to. Transporting a large, fragile hybrid vehicle, part Oldsmobile, part Ford, across the Atlantic required complex logistical planning. The crew couldn't simply drive the car onto a cargo ship and hope for the best. The solution devised was to completely dismantle the car into its constituent parts. This meant separating the Oldsmobile body from the Ford chassis, removing the wheels and critical mechanical components. Everything was then carefully packaged to ensure safety for the long ocean journey. When all the parts arrived in London, the crew faced a near impossible task: rebuilding the entire car from scratch on English soil. This process turned the car from a functional vehicle back into a collection of parts that needed reassembly, often without all the tools and resources they had readily available in California. Despite this, the effort succeeded, and audiences got to see the Clampetts driving their familiar truck through the streets of London, though few realized the costly and complex disassembly and reassembly process that made those scenes possible. Mobbed by London fans. In the summer of 1967, when the Beverly Hillbillies crew brought the legendary truck to London to shoot special scenes for the 6th season, they inadvertently created a media sensation. The show, already hugely popular in the US, turned out to have a massive following across the Atlantic, and this was quickly proven in the most spectacular way. As soon as the cast appeared in their iconic hillbilly attire with the old smoking truck, proceeding through London's ancient streets, curious crowds immediately poured out. They cheered, jostled, and quickly surrounded the filming area. Hundreds of people gathered, cameras in hand, trying to get a clear look at the faces of the actors they had only ever seen on the small screen. Some shouted the names of their favorite characters like Granny or Jed Clampett. Others even tried to push into the filming area for autographs or photos. This chaos forced the crew to halt filming multiple times. The meticulously planned scene became impossible due to the shouting, the moving crowds, and the excitement spreading throughout the neighborhood. The producers did not anticipate that filming in London would attract such intense attention. For them, it was both a logistical challenge and a testament to the incredible reach of the Beverly Hillbillies, a sitcom that seemingly only reflected the humorous life of the American South, yet captivated international audiences. The English media quickly reported on the event, calling it a friendly Hollywood invasion in the heart of London. Articles praised the show's global appeal, comparing the cast and crew to touring rock stars. As for the actors, it was the moment they realized their fame had transcended US borders. That memorable experience left a profound lesson for the crew. When a television production touches the hearts of the audience, it can overcome all language and cultural barriers. New channel, old memories, help us share more by promoting this video. Every promotion makes a huge difference. Jethro's hot rod was equipped with drag parachutes. When the Beverly Hillbillies series entered the 1968 to 1969 season, the storyline needed a new vehicle to highlight Jethro Bodine's cultural differences and his embrace of city life. Once again, George Barris, the custom car master, was called upon to create a second vehicle for the series. This time, the task was to build a super-fast hot rod, embodying Jethro's modern and sometimes goofy personality, a complete contrast to the family's old truck. Barris constructed this custom vehicle using a 1925 Oldsmobile Roadster chassis as the foundation. To ensure performance worthy of Jethro's racing ambitions, Barris installed a powerful V8 engine from a 1969 Oldsmobile 442. The car was fully equipped with modern components, including an automatic transmission, Kragar chrome mag wheels, Firestone Indy Supersport racing tires, and a custom exhaust system. The exterior paint was vibrant, metallic red standing out with bright yellow racing stripes running along the body, showing a stark contrast to the rust and weathered paint of the original truck. However, the detail that made this hot rod strangest and most memorable was the addition of 2 drag racing parachutes mounted at the back of the trunk. These were the type of parachutes used by professional drag racers to slow down the car after reaching high speeds on the track. In Barris's construction documents, he explicitly described them as being installed for emergency stopping. This addition gave the car an authentic racing look, emphasizing that Jethro's creation was not just for show, but was built for serious speed and performance. New channel, old memories, help us share more by promoting this video. Every promotion makes a huge difference. Granny defeats the hot rod with Moonshine. The episode The Hot Rod Truck Season 7 went down in television history with one of the most absurd and hilarious storylines, culminating in an unbelievable drag race between Granny and Jethro. This was a remarkable event because it directly contradicted Granny's established character. She was a person who had never been depicted as knowing how to drive during the first 6.5 seasons of the series, suddenly proclaiming that she wanted to race Jethro's new, modern hot rod. This dramatic race was staged at the Whiteman Stadium in Pacoima, California, a real drag racing venue, to provide an authentic feel. Miss Jane Hathaway even acted as the official flag waver, adding humor to the event. However, what made Granny's victory absurd and memorable was the explanation for how she managed to defeat Jethro's powerful hot rod. Granny did not rely on mechanical performance or modern upgrades. According to the episode's storyline, Granny won by using her homemade moonshine as fuel for the old Oldsmobile truck. The plot suggested that her Ozark Mountain Brew had enough alcoholic potency to give the antique car a burst of acceleration and speed that overcame all of Jethro's modern mechanical advantages. This outcome reinforced the show's recurring theme, that simple, traditional mountain wisdom could triumph over modern technology and the complexities of the big city. The lasting confusion over the exact model name. One of the most persistent mysteries for automotive historians and show fans concerns the exact Oldsmobile model name of the truck. Even sources considered authoritative cannot agree on whether the original car was a Model 43A or a Model 46. For example, the Ralph Foster Museum in Missouri, which houses the only surviving original truck, has referred to it as a Model 46 Roadster in their official documentation and exhibits. Conversely, the Barrett-Jackson Auction Company has listed the Beverly Hillbillies trucks in their sales catalogs, using both the Model 46 and Model 43A touring car designations at various times. This confusion is further complicated when considering their specifications. The Model 43A reportedly had a 4-cylinder 43-horsepower engine. The primary and most likely reason for this ambiguity stems from the car's transformative history before it became a television prop. The 1921 Oldsmobile that George Barris found had been heavily modified by its previous owner, including the complete removal of the rear section to turn it into a homemade truck. Barris then combined this modified Oldsmobile body with a vintage Ford truck chassis. Consequently, this hybrid vehicle no longer perfectly matched any single factory Oldsmobile model designation. Even the documentation from George Barris's Barris Custom Industries couldn't definitively resolve the question, with certifications and records sometimes using different model numbers in relation to the 5 cars he built. This has forced researchers and preservation institutions to make their best educated guesses regarding the exact model name. The truck's appearance changed subtly between episodes. Few realize that the iconic truck in the Beverly Hillbillies was actually hand-built by Hollywood car wizard George Barris. Each one was assembled from disparate parts, creating subtle variations that sharp-eyed viewers might notice when rewatching episodes from 1962 to 1971. These differences themselves contributed to the car's charm. Imperfect, yet full of character. Barris created each vehicle by combining frames and components from various old models, striving to keep them visually consistent on screen. However, the manual production meant he couldn't make every detail perfectly identical. Thus, in one episode, the truck might look tidier, while in another it might appear older, or slightly different in proportion. These minor discrepancies, though unintentional, gave each vehicle its own personality. One of the most noticeable differences was the height of the windshield posts. In some shots, the glass frame seems taller, giving the impression of a sleeker car. In others, it is lower, making the front end look heavier. Even the paint color and rust spots on the body were inconsistent. Some trucks had darker faded patches on the sides, while others had patchy rust on the rear or the truck bed. Even small details like the iconic brass bulb horn that produced the characteristic ooga sound changed depending on the vehicle. Some horns were mounted high near the edge of the hood, others were placed off-center or set further back. These differences are subtle, but loyal fans easily notice them when rewatching different seasons. The 1993 movie built a completely new replica. When 20th Century Fox decided to revive the Beverly Hillbillies as a feature film in 1993, with an entirely new cast including Jim Varney as Jed Clampett, the production team faced a crucial decision about which truck to use for this big screen return. The original truck, the only one surviving from the TV series and certified as the genuine vehicle, had been donated by Paul Henning and was safely displayed at the Ralph Foster Museum in Missouri. Theoretically, this historical car was available for the filmmakers to borrow or rent if they wanted to use an authentic artifact. Surprisingly, however, the film producers chose not to use the original truck from the museum. Instead, they commissioned George Barris, who had built the original truck for the TV series, to construct a completely new, separate replica for the 1993 movie. This decision likely stemmed from several key practical reasons. These included concerns about the condition of the original car after being in a museum for over 20 years, or issues related to insurance and liability when transporting and using a precious historical artifact. Additionally, the need for multiple backup vehicles during complex feature film production might have been a determining factor, avoiding production delays if the main vehicle childhood memory through this legendary truck. To keep us motivated, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Back to Yesterday so you don't miss our next exciting nostalgic stories. Thank you for joining us, and see you in the next video.